In the autumn of 1888, the dimly lit streets of London's Whitechapel district became the backdrop for one of the most infamous series of crimes in history. The perpetrator, known only by the moniker Jack the Ripper, terrorized the city with a string of gruesome murders that sent shockwaves through Victorian society and continue to captivate the public imagination to this day. In this narrative, we delve deep into the shadows of Whitechapel to uncover the chilling story of Jack the Ripper and his reign of terror. Whitechapel, in the East End of London, was a densely populated and impoverished area in the late 19th century. Its labyrinthine streets were filled with poverty, overcrowded tenements, and a transient population of migrants and destitute individuals. The district was notorious for its squalor, crime, and social deprivation, making it a fertile breeding ground for violence and lawlessness. The first victim attributed to Jack the Ripper was Mary Ann Nichols, whose mutilated body was discovered in the early hours of August 31, 1888, in Bucks Row. Over the next few months, 4 more women fell victim to the Ripper's blade: Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, and Mary Jane Kelly. Each murder bore the hallmarks of a frenzied and brutal attack, with the victims' bodies mutilated in ways that shocked even the most seasoned detectives. Jack the Ripper's modus operandi was consistent across all the murders. He targeted vulnerable women, mostly prostitutes, in the dark and secluded alleys of Whitechapel. After luring them into a false sense of security, he would launch his savage assault, slashing their throats with surgical precision before mutilating their bodies in grotesque and ritualistic ways. The Ripper's brutality and apparent knowledge of anatomy led many to speculate about his background and motives. The Whitechapel murders sparked a massive manhunt by the Metropolitan Police, led by Chief Inspector Frederick Aberline. Despite their best efforts, the investigation was hampered by the lack of forensic technology and the maze-like nature of the East End streets. The police interviewed hundreds of suspects, including local residents, physicians, and even members of the royal family, but Jack the Ripper remained elusive. Adding to the hysteria surrounding the case were a series of taunting letters purportedly written by the killer himself. The most infamous of these was the From Hell letter, which arrived at the offices of George Lusk, the head of the Whitechapel Vigilance Committee, along with a small box containing a human kidney. While the authenticity of these letters remains a subject of debate, they serve to fuel public fear and fascination with the Ripper legend. Historians and ripperologists have identified 5 murders as the canonical victims of Jack the Ripper: Mary Ann Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, and Mary Jane Kelly. These women, all living on the fringes of society, became tragic symbols of the Victorian era's social inequality and the vulnerability of its most marginalized members. More than a century after the